Is This a Great Game or What? With the Hall of Famer Tim Kirkshin. I'm his son, Jeff Kirkshin. And Dad, yesterday, the Little League World Series kicked off, which is so exciting to watch and be a part of. And we're going to be in Williamsport interviewing Karl Ravech and Todd Frazier for a double interview. You're going to get multiple episodes from the Little League World Series next week here on the podcast. But really, things kicked off for Little League on Tuesday because you were in the Big Apple, the city that never sleeps, you big city guy. Dad, you were there for a big premiere, right?
Right. The premiere of the movie Big Dreams, the Little League World Series 2024. This was Dick's Sporting Goods' first foray into filmmaking, essentially. And it was a 51-minute documentary about last year's Little League World Series. It was directed by Rudy Valdez, who I met. What a wonderful guy. And what a great film it was, Jeff. There were probably 150 people there to watch the filming. Alex Rodriguez was there lending, advice to the kids, and we had a round table, and I was the moderator, and it was really, really cool in New York on Tuesday night. I had a great time and can't wait for the Little League World Series to get full blown. And Jeff, it's not going to be an interview with Karl Ravech and Todd Frazier. It's going to be a free-for-all. It's just going to be a four-way conversation about the beauty of the Little League World Series. I know what you're saying. You're absolutely right. But they'll be interviewing us. We'll be interviewing them. It's all the same thing. It's great.
Yeah, if you happen to be in Williamsport, I know we're probably talking to a very small audience. We're going to be a part of the Game Changer and Dick's Sporting Goods setup. And so you can come join us on Monday, August the 18th. We're going to be there recording and signing and giving away pins. It's going to be a really great time. And then you get to hear everything we filmed and recorded at Little League World Series on the Tuesday and Wednesday episodes featuring I'm going to go heavy air quotes, interview with Todd Frazier and Karl Ravech. Dad, to be able to go to the Little League World Series with you now back-to-back years, back-to-back years, because if you remember, my wife Emily let me go to the Little League World Series 7 days after our daughter was born, which I mentioned it on the podcast, I think earlier this week or last week. By far the greatest wife move ever, because I brought her dad in order to go, and we had a blast. We had a great time.
Right. And this is what the Little League World Series is all about, is that Alex Rios, your father-in-law, he went there, because he loves baseball, but just as important, he went there to support Team Mexico, because he is of Mexican heritage. He didn't know anybody on the team, but that wasn't the point. There are a lot of people who can't travel from Mexico to Williamsport. So Alex Rios went there to support Team Mexico. That's another beauty of Williamsport. A lot of people just show up to watch the baseball, have no connection to it whatsoever, and others just want to show up and support their country. And I think that is one of the really, really cool parts of Williamsport, and that was brought out so beautifully in this 51-minute documentary, which I must say, Jeff, it made me laugh and it made me cry. It was really a powerful 51 minutes about what the kids go through, how to get there. It was really good.
I mean, it really is special. So it's a new ESPN Films as well, and how you can watch it. It's actually going to be it was just debuted, Dad. You had mentioned
Tuesday night at 9:30 Eastern was its debut on television. I'm sure it'll run a bunch more times. I strongly suggest you watch it. If you like baseball and if you love Little League World Series, it's right up your alley.
And you can check out the ESPN Little League World Series hub page. ESPN Plus has the documentary, so you can check it out there. All right, Dad, let's jump into the takeaways of Major League Baseball.
All right, well, we got to go with the Brewers again, Jeff. Through Tuesday, they'd won 12 games in a row. They joined the 35 Cubs as the last two National League teams to have two winning streaks of at least 11 games in one season. That's how good they are. They're different than everyone else, Jeff. They put the ball in play They're relentless on the bases. They have more steals than any team in the National League. They go first to third, second to home. And the manager of the team is just he's priceless, Pat Murphy. I've known him for years and years. I always loved being around him, but it's a different deal when you're the manager of the team. And he's in his late 60s, and he's an old school guy who will get right in your face and tell you the truth, but he's also got a really soft touch. So when he was the bench coach for the Brewers, kind of showing the way to Craig Counsell as the manager of the Brewers. He was the professor. He was the teacher of Craig Counsell. And now the teacher is showing everyone how to manage a baseball team. But I remember, Jeff, in 2021, this is what Pat Murphy does. These are the little things he does to keep the teams loose. So he came up with this idea. If any Brewer pitcher draws a walk as a hitter, this is back when pitchers had to bat, draws a walk without swinging the bat during the at-bat, he gets a 4-foot wooden statue that goes into his locker as a memento of, hey, you did something really good. You walked in a major league game and you did it without swinging the bat. So I didn't even know what this was until a couple of years ago. I went in the Brewers clubhouse, and Adrian Hauser, one of the pitchers, explained the whole thing to me because he had this. I said, "What's the deal with the wooden statue?" And he explained the whole thing. And he goes, "It's in my locker right now." And he was basically saying, "I'm really proud of this, and it will stay. It would stay in his locker until the next pitcher on the Brewers drew a walk without swinging the bat." Those are the little things that Pat Murphy did as the bench coach and now does as the manager of the team in order to keep that team focused, loose, and thinking about something other than just sliders on the black.
Yeah, I think there's a balance between just enjoying yourself in the game and being super competitive. And when you have that balance, it's beautiful. The expectations of going back to the World Series or going back to the NLCS when it comes to like this great example of the Mets right now, the expectations are heavy. The Brewers, I feel like, are just living in this great time with very little expectation and a whole lot of positivity and a lot of excitement surrounding that clubhouse. So I would love to see a Brewers run. I'm just going to say it right now. Dad, we root for the story here on Is This a Great Game or What? Despite me saying, yes, I am a Phillies fan because my wife and my daughter, we watch the games all the time because we're local to the area. I also root for the story. And the Brewers going to or winning the World Series would be a great story.
Jeff, they've only been to one World Series, 1982, which was the first one that I ever covered, and I will never forget it. And they've never won the World Series, so this would be really cool. Mm-hmm. And then there are the Mariners, Jeff, who've never been to the World Series. So they were 7 games back on July the 10th, and they have found a way to tie the Astros atop the American League West. That will be a fist fight for the rest of the season. And again, with every victory, the case gets better for Cal Raleigh being the MVP. And I'm not going to argue with anybody who wants to vote for Cal Raleigh as the MVP because the word valuable really fits exactly what he does with this team. Just one little thing about MVPs, Jeff, how much things have changed. Okay, Cal Raleigh's hitting 245. And we're talking about him being the MVP. Now, we don't value batting average today. Unfortunately, I still think it's an important category. The teams with the 5 best records in baseball as of the other day had the 5 best team batting averages in baseball. Is that a coincidence? Maybe not. So, but the point is, there are only 3 MVPs who have ever hit under 270 and won the MVP that year. Roger Maris hit 269 in 1961. Marty Marion hit 267 in 1944. And Shohei Ohtani hit 257 and won the MVP in 2021. So that's not going to hold Cal Raleigh back, even though I still think Aaron Judge is the MVP. The point is, Cal Raleigh's going to get a lot of votes, and I'm not going to argue with anyone who votes for that guy, given his leadership and how elite he is defensively.
Well, imagine we can have Cal Raleigh as an AL MVP and then an NL Cy Young to have more losses than wins in Paul Skeens.
Right.
That would be unprecedented. That would be crazy.
Right. It would be crazy. Paul Skeens could win the Cy Young without winning 10 games and with having a losing record. That's possible given the lack of support. And last thing, Jeff, the Padres caught the Dodgers. The Padres were 8 games back on July the 5th. And with this charge they've made, and the Dodgers are really scuffling, they have tied the Dodgers. And this is one race to keep your eye on for the rest of the way, because they play each other, I believe, 6 more times this season. So it is a free-for-all every time they get together. I think it's the best rivalry in baseball now, even better than Red Sox-Yankees, because they don't like each other. And clearly the Padres are not intimidated by the Dodgers, which is half the battle.
All right, Dad, let's jump into the Quirkgens. What do you have?
All right, so driving home from New York Tuesday night, I was listening to the Yankees-Twins game, among many other games on the radio, and they were making a big point, Twins broadcasters, as they should have been, is that the Twins got their leadoff batter, Austin Martin, got a hit, and then they didn't get a hit for the rest of the game. So the first batter of the game got a hit, and they were held hitless every at-bat for the rest of the game. And they were talking naturally and correctly, how often does this happen? Well, get this, Jeff. It's happened 2 other times this season, which I found a little bit surprising. Josh Smith of the Rangers did it, led off a game with a hit, no hits the rest of the game for the Rangers, and Victor Robles of the Mariners, same thing. So just when you think, hey, that's kind of unusual, well, it's the 3rd time it's happened already this year, which just speaks to how great baseball is, how quirky baseball is, all sorts of amazing things. Speaking of which, the first inning in that game, Aaron Judge hit his 14th home run in the first inning. Okay, the record is 18 homers in a first inning in one season. Aaron Judge and Alex Rodriguez hold that record. Just for comparison, the Cardinals have 7 homers as a team in the first inning this year, and Aaron Judge has twice as many by himself. The Cardinals have only scored 37 runs in the first inning. It's just bizarre how some teams get off to a great start and others. And speaking of the first inning, Jeff, Paul Skeens gave up a run in the first inning the other night to the Brewers. First time after 24 straight starts without allowing a run in the first inning. He gave up a run in the first. He fell short then of the record. There are records for these things. Bob Shockey in 1923 went his first 27 starts without allowing a run in the first inning. Jeff, didn't somebody write in about grand slams for the Royals? What was that about?
Yeah, well, someone was watching, a member of our family was watching the Royals game, and the broadcasters for the Royals were talking about how the Royals have yet to hit a grand slam in this season, which I kind of found to be suspicious. Is that common? This is Sean Knoll who did that. Post dead ball era, has there ever been a season where a team has played a full season without hitting a grand slam, was his question.
Yes, there have definitely been seasons like that. And this year, the Royals, the Rangers, the Nationals, the Twins, and the Cardinals don't have a grand slam. And the Diamondbacks, who are a sub-500 team, have 9 grand slams. So, Jeff, grand slams don't make any sense. I've told you this before. Willie Mays hit 8 grand slams. You would think out of his 660 homers, he'd hit more than 8. That's not a criticism. Al Kaline hit 399 homers. He hit 3 grand slams. Don Mattingly, as you know, hit 6 grand slams in one season, which is the record. And they're the only 6 grand slams he ever hit in his career. And he hit them in one season.
It's crazy.
How do you explain that? Frank Robinson, I've told you this, Jeff, played 6 years for the Orioles. He hit 2 grand slams in those 6 years, and they came in the same game. Now think about that for a second. It's just beautiful. The whole grand slam thing makes absolutely no sense. Who hits him, who doesn't hit him. I told you Pete Rose and Derek Jeter each hit 1. Madison Bumgarner, a pitcher, hit 2. So he hit as many as Rose and Jeter did combined in all their at-bats. And last thing, Jeff, Pete Alonso became the all-time home run leader for the New York Mets. He had 2 in one game on Tuesday night to give him 254, passing Darryl Strawberry. So now there are 4 active players who are the home run leaders for a team. not necessarily their team, but a team in Major League Baseball. So Pete Alonso's one. Mike Trout has the most homers in the history of the Angels.
Wait, Giancarlo Stanton for the Marlins?
Yes, very.
That's what I was thinking. Jeff, he hit a lot of bombs for the Marlins back in the day.
Jeff, that was very good. That was going to be the tricky one. Manny Machado's hit the most for the Padres.
Yeah.
But I was going to quiz you. This guy doesn't play for that team anymore, but is the all-time home run leader for that team as an active player, and it's Giancarlo Stanton for the Marlins.
Let's go. I got a question right, and you didn't even have time to ask it yet.
Right, Jeff.
Let's go.
Jeff, I'm proud of you. Look, I'm quoting music lyrics, and you are coming up with arcane baseball statistics. You got it.
What has happened to this podcast?
I don't know.
It's like Freaky Friday. We're switching roles.
Now, Jeff, no matter how we switch roles, I'll never be able to sing and dance like you. And and that's I wish, because I don't.
I've heard you go start to finish on Take Me Out to the Ball Game. It's not that bad.
Well, all right. I'm a better singer than I'm a dancer, but I've asked you before, Jeff, could you teach me how to dance? The answer, you say yes. I say the answer is no. I think it's like asking me to be taller. I think natural rhythm is precisely that, natural rhythm. You either have it or you don't, and I don't.
Do you think you could, and I'm not trying to be funny, I'm genuinely comparing it to teaching somebody to field a ground ball at shortstop. Well, back up. I'm not saying at the major league level and but I'm saying there is a rhythm to sports. Do you think you could teach somebody to shoot a free throw and make it look athletic? Like, yes, I think over time you could teach anybody anything. A lot of practice, a lot of mind hours, but it might take some people longer, and I think it would take you longer to learn how to dance. Yeah,
I think so. I have no chance of learning how to dance. I have great feet. I will tell you that, Jeff. You catch ground balls with your feet, and but my feet do not translate to dancing. So that we're not going to talk about this anymore. It's too embarrassing.
Oh, that makes sense why I committed so many errors as a kid, because you told me to catch them with my feet, so I'd end up kicking the ball. It was all messed up. So next on Is This a Great Game or What? We've got On This Date in Baseball History, From Ozzie to Oral, a brand new Team Tim, and the best of all Tim plus a seam head. Lots coming up next. On This Date in Baseball History, welcome back to Is This a Great Game or What? What do you have, Dad?
Well, Jeff, I got 4 birthdays. 1972, Juan Pierre was born. I haven't checked the stat lately, but the last time I checked, Juan Pierre had the most hits of anyone who never made an all-star team. He was a really good defensive outfielder. He could really get a hit. And I'll never forget, Jeff, I so enjoyed being around him because he was a self-made player. He outworked everyone. I went to a game at the Vet in Philadelphia, long before Citizen Bank was born. And he was out on the field at 12:30. I got to a game at 12:30, 7 o'clock start, which tells you a little something about me. There was one player on the field, and that was Juan Pierre at 12:30 in the afternoon. And he was rolling the ball down the third base line in order to see how the ball rolled in case he bunted down the third base line. And I said, I went and talked to him. So, what are you doing? And he goes, well, I'm just working on seeing where a bunt might go if I bunt out. This is the level of precision that it took for him to be a really good player. He outworked everyone, and that's a perfect example. So love Juan Pierre, really good player.
Yeah, we talk about Tony Gwynn, obviously Hall of Famer, and taking nothing away from his unbelievable athleticism and ability to get a hit. But we talked to his son, and Tony Gwynn, I think, is not a Hall of Famer if he doesn't work the way he worked. He worked harder than everybody else. He was watching tape of every pitcher. He was a studier of the game. And once again, taking nothing away from his athleticism and his ability, but he just worked harder than everybody and had the career he did because of it.
He did. Tony Gwynn was a great athlete, but you're right. He outworked everyone, and that's why.
And was a great athlete.
Of course. All right.
And he could throw a mean bounce pass.
Right. Oh, yeah. So since we had Joe West on yesterday as our guest, having an umpire on, I just think shows a little depth to this podcast. We need to see different we need to hear different voices, and I love to talk to Joe West the other day. So on this date in 1959, Dale Scott, umpire, was born. So I only tell you that, Jeff, because I was in the Umpire Fantasy Ejection League at ESPN. It's the only fantasy game I've ever played. No baseball, no football, no basketball. I just don't have time for it. Baseball is it's a conflict of interest for me to be, having a fantasy team and then rooting against somebody when I'm covering the team and I have to be the game. I have to be objective. But so I drafted my team, and Judd Birch from ESPN was the one that put all this together. He was our aficionado on umpiring. So the point is, Dale Scott was on Steve Berthune, who's my former, colleague at Baseball Tonight, and Bert drafted Dale Scott. So we're doing the Baseball Tonight at like 1:15 Eastern time in the morning, all right? And nobody is watching. So Bert, like Steve Berthune, like blurts out on the air, "Hey, Dale Scott, whenever you want to throw somebody out, I'm ready for you." And then later in that game, Dale Scott threw somebody out of the game. On command, he ejected someone. You win the umpire ejection fantasy league by you draft 4 umpires, and whoever has the most ejections at the end of the season wins the league. Dumbest thing ever, but I loved it. And can you remember the name of my team? Because I won an award.
Fill thine horn with oil and Vargo.
Oh, Jeff, I can't believe you remember that. Ed Vargo was a really good umpire. and Judd Birch, who started the league, his favorite saying for when somebody hit a home run, especially a Philly, especially Jim Thome, he would say, "Fill thine horn with oil and go," which is from the Bible. Not like I know that. But so I just changed the name of my team to Fill thine horn with oil and Vargo. So I never won the Fantasy Ejection League, but I did win best team name for Fill thine horn with oil and Vargo.
Excellent job, Dad.
All right. Also born on this date in 1959, Magic Johnson, who, of course, is one of the great basketball players of all time, one of the 10 greatest players ever, greatest point guard in history for me. And he's also a part owner of the Dodgers. So I got to know him a little bit when he used to work at ESPN. So I saw him a few times at games. And I asked him once, I said, Magic, what has impressed you most in the 3 months that you've owned the Dodgers? And he was quite serious. He said, "I can't believe how many games they play in the major leagues." He said, this was in LA on a Monday night. And he said, "Our team played on Sunday night on the East Coast, and then they flew across the country, and they're going to play tonight on the West Coast, and they're going to play well." He goes, "When we played a back-to-back in the NBA, it was a killer." Now, granted, Jeff, there's a different level of exertion for an NBA game back-to-back than a major league game. But his point was, I can't believe they're going to play well tonight after traveling all that distance and having played a game last night, and they're going to play again tonight. And I thought that was really honest of him to recognize just what a grueling job it is to be a Major League Baseball player with all the travel. Also, Jeff, I'll never forget this. Matt Kemp was on the Dodgers at that time. Matt Kemp was he was a really good baseball player and a great high school basketball player. So while he was with the Dodgers and Magic owned the team, I think he was serious, but he said he could beat Magic in a game of one-on-one because he's much younger than Magic Johnson. So on TV, I asked Magic, and it was a loaded question, of course, and I said it with a little chuckle. I said, "So Matt Kemp thinks he could beat you in one-on-one." And the look on Magic's face was absolutely priceless, Jeff. I'll never forget. He looked at me and he goes, "Look, these guys are playing the hardest game in the world to play, baseball." He goes, "I have zero chance to ever do anything well on the baseball field. I have zero chance to ever get a hit in a major league game." This was Magic being honest. And then he looked at me and he goes, But if Matt Kemp really thinks he can beat me at one-on-one, you have got to be kidding me. And I totally agree with Magic. As great as Matt Kemp was, and as young as he still was, there is no way he's going to beat Magic Johnson in a game of one-on-one. Leverage, size, experience, understanding of the game. That's what Magic had, and he would torch.
Wouldn't
Matt
be
Kemp.
Close.
Right.
Would not be close.
All right, last thing, Jeff. On this date in 1930, Earl Weaver was born. And Earl Weaver is, to me, one of the 5 greatest managers of all time. I covered him late 70s, early 80s in Baltimore. But then I covered him every day in 1986 as the beat writer, covering the Orioles for the Baltimore Sun. Earl taught me more about baseball than anyone I've ever met. I could tell you hours and hours of stories about Earl Weaver. And I just loved it. I'll never forget when I knew it was done for Earl. 86, the Orioles were pretty bad, but miraculously, he helped keep them in the race until the beginning of August, and then they fell apart and went 14-42 the rest of the season. And he retired again after that season because he knew we're not winning anymore with these guys. We really stink. So I was with him in Oakland, covering the team on a Sunday morning, filled out his lineup cards, just me and him in his office on a Sunday morning in Oakland. And he looks at me and he goes, "Tim, this is the worst lineup I've ever filled out for a major league game." And about a month later, he resigned. I should have known that day this is it for Earl, but I learned so much about him. Absolute brilliant man when it came to baseball. And they called him the Earl of Baltimore, which got me to thinking, Jeff, we need to come up with the what? The Earl of Baltimore.
We need to come up with what? The all royalty team?
All royalty team. Jeff, you're doing so well today. All right, here's the all royalty team. I think I've done this at some point before, but Prince Fielder is our first baseman. Jeff King is our second baseman. Ray Knight is the third baseman. Now, I fudged this one. Royal, R-O-Y-L-E, Stillman is our shortstop, even though he never played shortstop in a big league game. Earl always told me he could if he wanted to. Duke Snyder, Earl Averill, Hall of Famer, like Duke Snyder in the outfield. Ryan Court, the whole, whatever. Mel Queen is one of the pitchers, and current Nationals pitcher Brad Lord. So that is the all royalty team. And our catcher, sorry, I forgot, Steve Barron. Any of those make sense to you?
Well, Dad, I'm going to surprise you with this. John Woodward, who's a member of our family, actually emailed us an all royalty team back on Monday, August 11th. So earlier this week.
No.
Yeah.
I read it.
His pitcher, John the Count Montefusco.
Montefusco. I got it. All right. It's a nickname. I got it.
Earl Beatty.
Earl Batty, catcher for the Twins. Yes. I
Prince
considered
Fielder,
all these guys. Yes.
Prince Fielder, Ray Knight, Jack Wilson at shortstop.
Wait. Jack Wilson. What does that mean?
I don't know. Royalty Jack? Is that
all right. Keep going.
Dave Kingman at third.
Right.
This is a change. Lourdes Gurriel.
All right,
That's a good one.
Right.
Also had Mel Queen, Duke Snyder, Babe Ruth, the Sultan of SWAT, still a nickname. But, I mean, on Monday, he sent this, Dad. How great is that?
That's pretty good. With two ridiculous minds thinking alike. Oh, my gosh. Well, what's his name again?
That's John Woodward who sent that over, Dad. How crazy is that he sent that on Monday, and now here you are. And I swear to you, we did not communicate about this team, Tim. We get a lot of great ones, but I was kind of nervously typing over here because I remembered that he sent that, so I wanted to make sure I had it right.
How about that? 2 great reporters, Woodward and Bernstein here. How about that? That's great.
What's funny about that, Dad? We were at a wedding in Georgetown, as we mentioned, and I showed Emily. I said, "Oh, hey, there's the Watergate Hotel." And Emily is not privy to history. And she goes, "Watergate. God, that sounds familiar. Watergate. What is Watergate?" I said, "Well, that's a whole other thing. I was just kind of telling you that's where it happened. And that's the namesake, obviously, of President Nixon's ultimate resignation from the presidency." And by the time I finished explaining just that short one, I think she fell asleep because she is not not a history buff.
Right. Well,
All
Jeff,
right.
Dan Shaughnessy's wife, Mary Lou, is absolutely wicked smart, but she doesn't know anything about baseball. So we saw a picture in the background of Whitey Ford, and Dan identified it as Whitey Ford. And she said, "Oh, is he out of jail?" So living in the Boston area, apparently she got Whitey Ford mixed up with Whitey Bulger, who was he was like a gangster, like a criminal. So yes, so these little things come up, and all we can do is laugh. Dan called me just to tell me that Whitey Ford, Whitey Bulger story. It was great.
From Ozzy to Oral, we're counting down the best players at each number from 1 to 55. Dad, at this point, I've lost track. What number are we on?
All right, we're at number 36. We're going with Gaylord Perry, just ahead of Robin Roberts. Robin Roberts, one of the great pitchers of all time. So, Jeff, I think I've told you this, but the day I interviewed at ESPN in 1997, late in 1997, I get picked up by a car. Car comes to get me at the airport. And when the driver drives me in and he goes, I just dropped off one of my favorite people in the world, Robin Roberts. So I say, well, God, he was great. Won, 260 games, one of the whiz kids, incredibly durable. And after I go through this whole thing about who Robin Roberts was, he looks at me and goes, "Who the hell are you talking about?" I said, "I'm talking about Robin Roberts, the great baseball pitcher." And he goes, No. I'm talking about the Robin Roberts, who, of course, was an ESPN anchor. We were going to and from ESPN. I should have figured that out. Love Robin Roberts, the anchor. She's doing great still, beating all sorts of illnesses. I love her. But yes, that's when you have a one-track baseball mind. When someone says Robin Roberts to you, you think of right-handed pitcher with the Phillies, not anything else.
Yeah, I'm worried about any sort of music star, too. Someone would be like, "You're not going to believe I just met Carlos Santana." And you'd be like, "Wow, he had a great year in 2019. He's a silver slugger for the then Indians." Right. You're like, "Oh, God.
Switch hitter with power." Yes, great. All right, so we're going with Gaylord Perry. Gaylord Perry won 314 games. He won the most games in the major leagues in the 1960s and 70s combined. You'll win some money if you ask people that question with the answer is Gaylord Perry. He also had the 8th most strikeouts of all time. He did all of this with a 3.11 ERA, and he had 53 shutouts, which is the 17th most of all time. Now, we all know he threw a spitter, but Jim Sundberg was one of his catchers with the Rangers. And years later, Jim Sundberg told me, look, Gaylord just loaded up only like once in a while. Like if he needed a big out or a big pitch in the 7th inning, he would like throw one spitball per game. That's it. People think he loaded up on every single pitch, but that's what he was doing to just try to get into the head of the hitter. Like, I'm throwing a spitball every pitch and you got the hitter all psyched out about things. So I believe Gaylord Perry was an underrated pitcher, not an overrated pitcher. But the great story about him, Jeff, was in 1964, he's pitching for the Giants, and Alvin Dark is the manager. And one of the writers went to Alvin Dark and said, I've been watching Gaylord Perry hit. He's a good hitting pitcher, and he's gonna hit a home run in the big league someday. So Alvin Dark, the manager of the Giants, says, "Listen, we are gonna land a man on the moon before Gaylord Perry hits a major league home run." So 5 years later, on July 20th, 1969, at 1:17 p.m., Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin walked on the moon. And Jeff, I'm not making this up. 30 minutes later, 238,900 miles away from the ballpark, Gaylord Perry hit a home run off of Claude Osteen. So Alvin Dark said, "We're going to land a man on the moon before Perry hits a homer." And the difference was 30 minutes later. And Alvin Dark, who was then managing the Indians, said, "Well, technically I was right. We landed a man on the moon first by 30 minutes. How about that?"
One small swing for a batter, one giant swing for Gaylord Perry.
All right,
That is
Jeff.
funny, Dad.
Also, it's a great story, and it's
also
a true story.
knowing us.
All right, Jeff. We're going to do two numbers today. Number 37 is Keith Hernandez. Now, technically, we should probably go with Dave Stieb because Dave Stieb wore that number for his entire career. But we've already used Dave Stieb as our number one Toronto Blue Jay in the history of the franchise, and correctly so. But we also had Keith Hernandez on in spring training, and I told him, hey, thanks for joining us. We have you as the greatest number 37 of all time, so I can't go back on a promise to Keith Hernandez. He wore number 37 with the Cardinals. He spent 8 years there. He won co-MVP with Willie Stargell for the MVP in 1979. He was a great St. Louis Cardinal. He is the greatest defensive first baseman of all time. And Jeff, let's see if you can remember why he wore number 37 for the Cardinals. Do you remember?
Everything. He always had to have a 7 in his number, right?
And why was that, Jeff?
Oh,
Mickey Mantle was born, shared the same birthday as Keith Hernandez, so he had to wear a 7. So the only 7 that was available when he signed with the Cardinals was number 37. Then he got traded to the Mets. He wanted to wear 37 again. I'll give you $1 million if you can get this. He couldn't wear number 37 for the Mets because that number was already retired by a former manager of the Mets.
Former manager. Hold on. Former manager of the Mets that would have their number retired.
Right.
I only know like 3 former managers of the Mets. And it's not Bobby Valentine.
Right.
Oh, is it Casey Stengel?
Yes, Jeff.
Woo!
Jeff, you're having a great podcast. I've quizzed you like 4 times and you're 4 for 4. Really, really good. So that's great. So that's what we're doing with Keith Hernandez. We're making him our greatest number 37, even though only half his career basically did he wear that number.
Best of all Tim, Dad, you mentioned, one of our best of all Tims, Dave Stieb. But now, what team are we doing this week? You're going to take a team, best player in that franchise. All
right, we're doing the Tigers, and we're going, this is pretty easy. For me, Al Kaline is the second greatest Tiger ever. Ty Cobb is the greatest Tiger ever. He's a lifetime 366 hitter. He's one of the greatest hitters in baseball history. 1909, he won the Triple Crown. He batted .377 with 9 homers and 107 RBIs, stole 897 bases in his career. And Jeff, in 1925, he got a little bit tired of people saying that he was just a singles hitter because he hit a ton of doubles, a ton of triples. He just didn't hit the ball out of the ballpark because, again, Jeff, when he started his career, hitting the ball out of the ballpark was not what you were supposed to do. Mm-hmm. It was only until Babe Ruth came along in 1920 with the Yankees that he popularized and glamorized the home run. And Babe Ruth became wildly popular, and the game took off because of Babe Ruth. But Ty Cobb got a little bit tired of that after a while. So on May the 5th, 1925, when one of the writers challenged him, he went out and went 6 for 6 and hit 3 home runs in one game. All of them over the fence, Jeff, had 16 total bases in that game, which set the major league record for total bases in one game. And he did it just to spite everyone. Look, if you want me to hit home runs, I can do that. It's not good for the game. It's not the way that I was taught how to play the game. This is not the way I play the game, but I'll just show you I can do it if I want to. And Jeff, I'm in the massive minority here. And I think at age 68, somebody has to protect the history of the game. I really believe that Ty Cobb could not only play in today's game, I think he would be a really good player in today's game. He would need 6 months to figure out how to hit this velocity. But Jeff, he could fly. He was big. He was strong. He wasn't wee Willie Keeler. He weighed 180 pounds, sometimes more in his career. I think he would be the everyday center fielder for the Detroit Tigers right now. And boy, do people think I'm crazy about that.
Well, and they would be made better for it, and they're a pretty darn good team this season. So
yes, absolutely.
Let me tell you about today's Seamhead for I Am a Seamhead. You can always send me a voice memo, Jeff@greatgameorwhat.com. Jason Schwartz is the co-chair of the Sabre Baseball Cards Research Committee, which is the most fun committee at Sabre, according to our friend Mark Simon. Okay, so he runs a baseball card pack rip at the Sabre convention every single year, dozens and dozens of packs, and he, Dad, loves baseball cards, like we all do. But wait until you hear just how many cards he had at one point in his life. Let's take a listen.
I'm Jason Schwartz. I'm from Western Springs, Illinois. I'm a Seamhead because, first off, baseball's the greatest game in the world. The history's so rich. But in my case, really, it was all about falling in love with baseball cards when I was 8 years old. Baseball cards for me were just a window into another world, but also just the way I made friends at school, right? The cool kids were trading cards. They were collecting Steve Garvey. As soon as I got my first Garvey, I instantly had friends, and just been in love with cards and the game of baseball ever since. At my peak, I probably had about 300,000 baseball cards. I've thinned things out a little bit over the years, so now I've probably got about 30,000, and still trying to thin things out a little bit. It's hard because I love them so much.
That's our Seamhead this week, Jason Schwartz.
Jeff, 300,000 cards? Seriously, where did he put them? I mean, does he have a room just for baseball cards? He has to, right? 300,000?
Dad, do you still have every book that you filled?
No. I threw away
after.
a bunch of my box score books. They were taking up too much room in the house. I
Did you
didn't
keep
need them.
any season?
I kept. I have a couple of seasons. Yes, just to make sure, in case anybody asks, I could show them and say, "This is what my box score book looked like." But Jeff,
did you pick anyone in particular, or
no,
did you just pick
it
one?
didn't matter. It didn't matter which
You didn't
season
say, I really
it
want
was.
the 85 season right now.
Right. I'm not going to carry around a giant book on the road when I can look everything up on the internet now. We didn't have the internet back then, so I would carry one or two books per season. So Jeff, as far as baseball cards go, I can honestly say I've only stolen one thing in my life, and this is a true story. I was about 8 years old. I was collecting baseball cards, not putting them in a box, but I had every baseball card, and I'm not making this up, except for, this journeyman reliever, Hal Wood. Okay. And I'm walking through the Kresge's 5 and Dime, and this is in 1964. And I don't have any money because I never had any money. How many 8-year-olds have money? But
right.
We didn't have any money in our family growing up, believe me. So I'm walking through the store, and I'm not making this up, Jeff. There is a baseball package of cards opened up, and like peeking out of the top is Hal Woodachek's card. And I went, oh my God, this is the one card that I need. So 8-year-old Tim Kirkjian lifted it out of the package of cards and walked out of the store. How about that? Shoplifter Tim Kirkjian. And
Officers.
I got away with it.
Officers. There he is. Take
there
him
he
right
is.
now.
Right. What did he steal? A baseball card
right.
of Hal Woodachek.
I think 60 years later, the statute of limitations has expired on a petty theft for an 8-year-old. So you don't need to stress about this going on the internet.
Right. Well, that's...
Which now we learned you know a lot about the internet. Way to go.
Right. I need to learn a whole lot more, Jeff. Okay. Well, that's great, Jeff.
We'll take it one day at a time. I'll teach you how to use email. You're going to love it. It's so convenient. All right. Well, Dad, we're excited because as we mentioned at the top of the show, next week, you will hear us live from Williamsport. That's right. We're going to be doing an episode, our Tuesday episode from Williamsport at the Little League World Series. Wednesday, we'll feature our guests, Todd Frazier and Carl Ravitch. It's going to be a great week, Dad. I can't wait to spend another time with you. And thanks to our friends at Game Changer and Dick's Sporting Goods for hosting us. I'm so ready for it, Dad. So I'll see you in person next week.
Right. And let's be clear. Carl Ravitch is the voice of Little League Baseball, and Todd Frazier is the second voice because he's the greatest analyst we've ever had on Little League Baseball because, of course, he played there. He won a championship there. Nobody loves Little League Baseball more than Todd Frazier. And as we've said many times, he's the biggest 12-year-old ever. He's still 12 years old when he goes to Williamsport, and that's what makes that place so special and so magical.
Dad has a big surprise for both of them as well, which will be revealed during that interview. Thank you so much for listening, and as always, thanks for being a part of our family.